So what's the buzz this week? We're going to be speaking to experts that are actually out in the field. So I'd like to welcome our guest speaker, Robert Frisch from Firelight Camps. So Robert, can you please introduce yourself in about 30 seconds or less?
Sure. My name is Bobby Frisch, based here in Ithaca, New York, with our company Firelight Camps. We've been operating our location here in Ithaca since 2014, so this is our 11th season, and we're looking at some other properties for expansion, opening up new sites as well.
Oh wow! So you guys have been in the business for a while.
We have, yeah, 11 years.
All right, perfect. Well, that'll lead right into that first question then. So, in your 11 years, what's the number one piece of advice that you've been given as a glamping operator?
Yeah, it's a great question. Been doing it for a long time, and actually before Firelight, we were doing large glamping installations as well. Um, I think just maybe not specifically as a glamping operator, but general advice that I think about a lot is sort of taken from Stoicism is to just try to focus on the things that you can control. There's a lot of things that are thrown at you as an operator. If it's weather event, wildflower smoke, angry guests, a lot of things are sort of out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helps to just focus on what you can control. That's gotten me through some difficult times and something I come back to a lot.
Sure. Yeah, and that's great advice. It's hard to, you only have so much energy in a day, and if you start to worry about things that you can't control, then it's never a winning battle, right?
Right?
Um, so in the last couple of years, are there some certain things where maybe that you've kind of got thrown at you in your business that you're like, oh man, it's hard to keep that and maintain that focus.
Yeah, well, I mean, weather is obviously a big one in glamping, and here in upstate New York, something we're not used to. Last year, we had wildfire smoke coming down from Canada,
Mm-hmm.
really bad. It affected air quality um, to such a point where it was unsafe, to be outside for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Something we're not used to thinking about here on the East Coast, and but we had to do what we could and to keep our guests safe, but also especially to keep our staff safe. They work outside, usually 8-hour shifts,
Mm-hmm.
and we're uncomfortable, in that environment. So we quickly had to come up with a protocol of what was an acceptable level of air quality, pollution, and at what levels, we would monitor it and then send people home. Close. We actually had to close the resort on two separate occasions last year. Now we have that in place and we can use it going forward. So
Sure.
yeah, it's just one example of things that get thrown at you.
Yeah, and that's great. Like you said, it's all about safety and taking care of not only the guests but your employees as well.
Yep.
Um, what are three key components to a successful glamping resort?
Sure, that's a great question. We have a lot of mentors from the hotel industry also, whether that's advisors or investors,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think there's some similarities. I think having a great location obviously is a big one. And in glamping, that often means proximity to great outdoor activities. For us in Ithaca, at least, we're right on the border of Buttermilk Falls State Park. So
Okay.
there's a private hiking access. You're in the state park in 10 minutes. And from there, you can do some incredible hikes. You can swim in a waterfall. There's a gorge trail, for what the Finger Lakes is famous for.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen, quite a few resorts that you can build a beautiful tent or a beautiful cabin, but if it's in the middle of nowhere or you can't do many great outdoor activities on site, you got to get in your car and drive somewhere. That's a big ding off of I think how the guest is going to view it. So location and glamping means proximity to great outdoor activities. That's a big one. For the actual units themselves, same as hotels, cleanliness is huge. Nobody wants to get into a moldy old tent or something that's obviously not being taken care of. So that really
Mm-hmm.
comes down to operations and your team. Um, and then for us, we really do focus a lot on the guest experience that comes from our staff, and we are more like a hotel operation in that we like to have a staff presence. create a social environment in our lobby area. We have a full bar and a food and beverage program. So our guests really like being welcomed by our staff, being able to ask for itineraries of what to do in the area. There's a lot of chatter and really relationship building that we do with our guests,
Mhm.
and to us, that's been a big driver of our success.
Perfect. And it sounds like, leads right in kind of the next question. When somebody's starting out, it sounds like those are kind of the three main things that you want to be thinking about in order to set them up for success. Is there anything looking back, 11 years ago that you wish somebody would have told you that said, if you make sure that you can focus on at least this one thing, it'll save you a lot of time in the future?
Yeah, I'll flip that question around a little bit. Those three things are certainly important, but I do talk to a lot of people who are just starting out thinking about getting into the industry. And a piece of advice I often give, or something I often hear from people just starting out, in that I think there's this bias towards doing something small, and I often give the opposite advice of oftentimes a larger operation can not only be easier, but it's just a better idea in a lot of ways. Um, it can be easier. It's kind of counterintuitive because a large enough operation can generate enough income to hire a great staff, including a general manager. Which is very different from saying, "Hey, I'm gonna do a 10 tents and run the whole thing myself, do all the housekeeping myself, handle everything myself." That's very difficult. In a lot of ways, it can be easier and certainly more fruitful to oversee a great staff running a bigger operation. Also, just in terms of effort in and results and reward out,
Mhm.
oftentimes a larger operation is just going to have bigger value. There's
Mhm.
a lot of economies of scale about running a place like this. So I often challenge people to really give some deep thought to not limiting themselves to just doing a few tents, whereas a larger operation can actually be easier and better.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. That seems counterintuitive, but when
Yeah.
you explain it out, you're like, okay, actually, that does kind of make sense. So that's great. And let's kind of wrap it up with the one last question, and I'll ask you to pull out your magical crystal ball here. Can you tell us what you're thinking is on the horizon for the next 5 years in this industry? And if you know what that is, how are you planning on trying to prepare for it?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of demand out there for experiences like what we glamping operators offer, and there's a lot of people out there racing to meet that demand. I think in the next 5 years, which is medium term, I think there's still a lot of challenges in the industry in terms of fast growth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the interest rates are still high. Financing is not easy, and the kind of ground up development world right now, there's just a lot of factors that make construction difficult. Right now, I think those will ease up over the next 5 years, which will add some fuel to the momentum of the industry. But
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of the big players are being rightly cautious right now, and are getting ready for those things to ease up over the next 5 years, and we're doing the same. So getting ready for when the conditions are better to expand faster, and whether that's tying up properties, site selection, or dialing in your designs and how to best operate and build these things.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's very well said. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in the next couple of years once kind of everything hopefully straightens itself out. But yeah, companies like yourself just have to be ready to jump at those opportunities. So,
Right.
Bobby, I want to say thank you for joining us here at the Weekly Buzz. Really appreciate your time and great insight and feedback, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All
Have a
right,
good one.
take care. Thank you.
Okay.